Man, if we won like all these finals that we have lost together,
you will still play together, huh?
would have been a different story. I mean, for us, there's a ton of pressure. People want us, see us fail, right? Let's say like we, I don't know, drop out in groups in Katowice, for example. That's going to be a disaster.
I still believe every day, every year, I'm getting better individually.
And NiKo, you're playing until you win the major, or is that not going to stop? You're going to keep playing even if you get one?
So you're asking the questions, but I feel like you're on NiKo's side here.
No,
2 versus 1.
No. You'll be surprised.
Don't worry.
All right, guys, welcome to another podcast roundtable. Here I have 2 of the greatest IGLs in the history of FaZe Clan and the 4th best coach as well, NiKo and Karrigan. I think I want to kick it off with actually when you 2 guys faced off against each other for the first time, and that is DreamHack Bucharest 2012, CS 1.6. Karrigan, you were on Fnatic at the time, the very end of 1.6, and NiKo, you were with Kassad, unfortunately, already then on iNation. So do you guys remember anything about that tournament, like from your own perspectives?
Well, I got tracked, that's what I remember. But yeah, I think we played 2 times versus you guys, if I'm not mistaken, that event. I think we played the first game and then the elimination. I think both times
it was this interesting format where you play them in groups and you both qualify for playoffs, and then you play them in the first round of playoffs.
Okay, maybe, yeah. I couldn't remember.
Really great formats back then.
But I think they had an insane team back then. Like, you guys were the best at that time once the big dogs left to CSGO already.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember because when we switched to CSGO, I remember NiKo's name after. I think you're a young talent back then. A lot of talk about that. So you could feel in 1.6 that NiKo also had the level and the skill. But obviously, our team was really strong back then. It was like kind of a dream Scandinavian team, basically. There was I think even was with FaZe. I'm not sure if Exist left already.
He did left.
Yeah, indeed. So I was actually calling that event, if I'm not wrong. That started when I started to calling. So yeah, I mean, long time ago. Bad formats, bad PCs, bad tournaments. So yeah. That was a long time ago.
Safe to say we've come a long way.
The mic's even better now.
Since then. So let's talk about more recent topics, right? For you guys, made some changes in this last player break, a bit more significant on NiKo's side. But for you, Finn, as well, ropz leaving for Vitality, getting EliGE, how has that been to kick off this year?
I was a little bit stressful, right? Obviously, I'm really close with ropz. Obviously, we wanted to re-sign him for 6 months. But in the end, there were some decisions to make right before major. What do we want to do? We want to change now, or we want to see how he feels after the major. So I didn't try to focus on the last 3 months. I didn't tell the other guys either in the team that there might be a chance he's leaving. But for me, it was more about he doesn't know what he wants. And when he left the team, there's different ways you can go. Last time we went for a 1-to-1 switch with Frozen for Twist, where we kind of like kept playing the way we wanted to. With John coming in, I think it's one of those changes where we don't get a honeymoon phase. We had changed a lot of positions. We're changing the basics. I'm even changing how I'm calling in certain scenarios of the game. And I'm just looking forward to how it's going to evolve. I'm for sure we're not ready for Katowice yet, but you never know, right? We won here with a stand-in once as well. But in the end, I think John is a really capable player. I think it's what I have been lacking since I actually play with NiKo, a very second strong voice in the team that can direct me, also help me in the game a little bit more. Because since NiKo, I didn't really play with anyone in Mouse. I didn't play with anyone in FaZe who has that slight leadership qualities, I would say, to kind of help when the moment gets tough, to kind of adjust the call or help me when I don't see the gap. So I'm just looking forward to kind of evolve this relationship with EliGE.
You obviously played against him a ton over the years. Was he on the top of the list? Is he someone you've quietly admired from afar and just didn't have an opportunity, didn't think there was a chance of being on a team with him before?
I think it's the same situation I had with Twist, right? You're looking at the player, but you never really imagined playing with the player. You have respect for what he's achieving, what he's doing in the game, right? EliGE is super experience. I think he played in Liquid since he was 17 years old. It's 10 years at the highest level in NA, right? He has won the Grand Slam. He misses the major, of course, but he has won the big tournaments. He knows what it takes to win. But I also like to see the trajectory of his career, right? He was really the best NA player for multiple years, but the last 2 years have been tough on him. But I also think he has been stronger mentally, stronger the way he works, the way he sees the game. And that's something we need, because we're getting him in a point where his trajectory is going up again in his career and not like in the middle ground, which I think is a fantastic moment for us to kind of like seeing what he's done correctly the last 2 years, especially in complexity. I think in many parts of their results the last year in CS2 has been thanks to John and how he sees the game and how he helped them improve. So for sure there's some adaptations, both for him but a lot for us as well, honestly.
I think also what you touched upon there about his career still being, in an upward trend. You're one of the oldest player in the scene, but you show no signs of slowing down. You just led your team to another major grand final, right? What's your opinion on the whole conversation about longevity and of careers and for how long, a player can compete on a tier 1 level? Do you think it's overstated, perhaps, the age at times?
I think so in some regard. I still believe every day, every year I'm getting better individually, but the new kids on the block, they are shooting so hard. They're developing so fast. There's obviously some things I can feel. Mainly it is these long trips, the long tournaments, the long days. I'm prepping a lot. I can feel sometimes that my focus level in the game is maybe not at 100%. But it's about mentality to understand, okay, I'm not at 100, but I give 100 my 80% I am today. Obviously, there is always going to be periods, but I think the last 2 years I understood when I have an off day, I really need to shut completely off from CS. Because when I have 2 days off, I come back, I call really good in practice, for example, and I can feel the energy level is way higher. But sitting 10 hours in front of a PC every single day is very hard, and I think that comes with age and not motivation and all, but just like sitting down for a long time is rougher now than when I was 17. I could play 24 hours without sleeping. Today I cannot do that.
And then NiKo, for yourself, 4th organization in close to 10 years, right? What was it that prompted you to make this change? Because you had your brother on the previous team, you had Monesi, who you formed a really close bond with, who's one of the best players in the world. So for a lot of people, it was looking from the outside a little bit surprising that you made the switch.
Yeah, I think the reason why people see it as a big surprise is probably because we actually got the best team towards the end when I decided to leave. So that was maybe a bit of unfortunate timing for myself, I would say. But obviously, if I take a look at the whole 4 years that I've been a part of G2, I think it's pretty safe to say that like first 2.5 years were like pretty disappointing results-wise. We haven't won a single event, and with this, I have been very disappointed in how we played and how some things has been managed throughout this time with the roster changes that we have made as well. So we haven't really been competitive for the titles, I would say, for majority of that time. We obviously had some peaks where we were going through the finals, but we were never really as good as Navi were, for example. I think that we probably just used the chance that everyone else was like way worse than Navi, for example, at the time. So yeah, the biggest reason why I decided to leave is just due to this, that I haven't really been eye to eye, or not to say eye to eye, but I didn't really agree with some of the changes we have done throughout the majority of the time in my team. And with Falcons, I really believe that they're here to build a team around me, and I think we have the right people to help me achieve those things as well. So this has been the biggest reason why I switched.
What are some of your first impressions with the Falcons organization, just in regards to your Counter-Strike team and all the support staff, and how's it been?
I mean, everything has been good apart from, all the struggle of getting a team and assembling the team, but which is not in their power, obviously, but they are very welcoming. They had taken a very good care of me ever since I joined, and I really enjoyed being here so far. But as I said, this player break has been pretty tough for me and for them as well. We didn't really know which roster we were gonna go to almost like 10 days or 7 days prior to boot camp. So it's been very stressful, but as I said, we share a common goal. We wanna build the best team possible, and obviously it's gonna take time. And but I also believe that we ended up with a very good team. I think very solid team that I believe we can do a very good damage. I think if Heroic managed to climb to top 8 with the team that they had before, I believe that we can go much higher than that. So, but that will all take time, obviously. But yeah, I think. Considering everything, I'm very happy with what I have right now.
And a similar question, like for Karrigan about EliGE, you know, Magisk is someone who you competed against for a long time and was a pain in the ass to play against, to be honest. But how does it look now that you're on the same team? What's he like?
Yeah, as you said, I think he has been one of the most stable anchors in the world for quite some time, and he's obviously also one of the reasons why I decided to switch, and I obviously wanted even him on in G2 at some point. That's how like he's just a very good player, but like he is very chill actually. He doesn't act that like he has won everything, and but he is very smart about the game. I think he's very mature as well, and he has good work ethic, and he's super hungry to win, especially how the last year went for him and the Falcons. So he's very motivated, and it's. I mean, I haven't played the event with him yet, right? So this is our first event, so it's kind of hard to say how it's gonna work out. I guess you see the real face like once you get to play on the important matches when there's a pressure. Then you see how people act, communicate, and you know, how they act as a teammates. So that's going to be interesting, but I have no doubts about him. I think he's, as I said, I think he's very mature, and I think he will quickly climb back to his level.
You guys also have both been a part of big organizations, you know, for a long time, really. Is there any added pressure this year with the changes that we have, with no more partner teams and everything is just dependent on the VRS and your results?
I mean, for us, there's a ton of pressure. Not like from those things like VRS and the ranking, but it's just people want to see us fail, right? So this is probably the biggest pressure that we'll have to deal with when the things maybe don't go wrong. That we address it, that we know how to kind of react towards it, and like. Not one loss can affect the whole season for us, which can sound like that when, let's say, like we, I don't know, drop out in groups in Katowice, for example. That's going to be a disaster like for everyone. So these things are very important for us, how we manage to deal with it. So this pressure can be a bit tricky, but when it comes to the VRS and everything, this is actually just up to you. And if you do bad, you're not going to be at the major. If you do good, you're going to be there. So these things is just about how much work you put in, what team you have around you, and yes, there's a pressure, but it's in your hands. So
how about on your side of things, Finn? You guys already had the situation where you lose online at Blast, but lose less than, let's say, Vitality, because they made it to LAN and then lost the LAN game. Where do you stand on this whole situation?
With what? With the pressure?
Yeah, the VRS and having to, you know, pick and choose maybe.
I think VRS is a good thing. I think if you are invited over at the beginning of the year, you are already in the circuit of like top 16. You are invited. You can pick and choose. If you're not performing at the events you are at, the first 2-3 events, why should you be invited for the 5th, 6th, and 7th? I think it is basically how it's supposed to be. I think we have seen in the past. Somebody has partner teams, they lose their players and they sign a really young team, but they still get to play tournaments. And I think this is the way forward. I think grind has to be, it has to help the teams to achieve something, because we saw Gambit during the COVID era. They would never have been invited to any tournaments. They came and they became the best team in the world online, and they kept playing good on LAN. They might not win, but they actually proved that the grind paid off. And
unless it's against you guys.
Yeah. No, but I think in the end, I think to touch on the pressure, I don't think for me, don't think about not getting invited because if you're not top 16, we are doing something completely wrong. I don't deserve to go an event if we are not top 16. That's simple as that. So, of course, you have to be aware. You have to perform good. You can't just pick and choose and chill a little bit too much in the season. You can only do that when you have won a tournament and you kind of secured the next 2 months of like you're still top 8, right? In the end, I don't care if you're number 5, if you win the major in Katowice during the season. I think in the past you wanted to be the number 1 team in the world. This year, it's going to be harder to choose who's number 1, but some teams are going to another event where they are not, but then you get to see each other at the majors and the Katos and the Colognes. That's where everyone is going 100%. The rest of the tournament, some might not go, and I think that's how it's supposed to be. I'm also tired of, we played G2 so much in group stage, played Spirit so much. At the end, you kind of get like a little bored of the same matchup, but actually trying to play other teams, doing a playoff is also exciting, and you also get to learn more about yourself and other teams.
How big of a challenge is it going to be then to pick and choose, right, tournaments? I mean, on your team, you have a lot of veterans. Burnout is a real problem. Have you guys discussed that? What's the approach there?
I think Brokey said something good in was last year when we started to get, like there was a period of time when we got burned out after the major in Copenhagen. We said yes to everything. And the point he said, we have to expect we're going to the final every time we go to an event. So we have to plan accordingly. That if we're saying yes to every event, we have to expect we go to final every day. And I think that mentality is good to have. But I also think when you don't do it, it's going to bite you in the ass. But missing out on one event where you went out earlier the previously one, you have more time to kind of like, okay, let's go back to basics. What do we need to work on? So we're prepared for in 4 weeks for next tournament. So obviously there's been a lot of talking about us skipping a tournament in the public. And for that, it just purely comes down to mental health and scheduling, especially with a new player moving to Europe. We had to figure out what makes sense from player perspective during this season, when to take a few days off for it to happen naturally. It is very stressful to move to Europe and not knowing anyone. So basically, we are going to choose where we want to go, what makes sense in schedule-wise, and obviously also in talk with FaZe of what makes sense for them org-wise. You have to have both perspective to make the right decision, I believe.
They're the ones who pay the bills
yeah.
in the end. All right, I want to bring it back now to when you guys first joined forces back in 2017 when NiKo joined over from Mouse. Was that based off of, just you watching him from the outside? You didn't have any prior relationship with him. It's just, based off of pure skill, or did you actually know him a little bit as well by then?
I don't think we knew each other too much. I think we played against each other and he played in Mouse. I think we talked a bit. But in the end, there was a clear goal that made me fall in love for FaZe. I came from Astralis, seeing all the national teams winning, and I saw opportunity making international team a dream come true. Because on paper, international team is every time gonna beat the national teams. You have free way of picking different players, and obviously coming to FaZe, the only thing I heard from FaZe is like, you can change every player, but besides Rain, we really like him. So
still
he's
true to this.
Still here to this day somehow. I don't know what contract he signed, but there was a clear vision. I saw NiKo popping off in, I think, back then FPL and playing really good in Mouse. There was a player I really wanted to play with, young and hungry to win, and knowing that he could not maybe achieve the same things in a domestic lineup. International lineup was also the future for NiKo, and I think it just makes so much sense in what we did. When I came to the lineup, I saw issues, and I actually decided to leave the team, and I was like, fair enough. And then we had money to buy NiKo because we sold him to North, and from there on it just went on, and we just kept performing and making the team better for getting Olof and Guardi in the end. And then we made what I saw when I joined FaZe, and what international team could be, a team full of really strong players from 5 different nationalities.
Well, that was your final form.
That was a good team, not gonna lie.
What about you, NiKo? What was going through your head when, first you heard that FaZe Clan was interested in picking you up?
I mean, for me, it was a clear choice. Like, I think at that moment, I'm not sure like how you guys were doing, what like rank you guys had, but I think us and you, I think we were the only international teams back then, and maybe like Hellraisers, if I'm not mistaken. But so for me, it was a clear upgrade, and I think I even been in talks with FaZe before you joined, if I'm not mistaken. So for me, it was a clear decision. As soon as I got the opportunity to leave Mouse and join FaZe, I jumped on it immediately, but I felt like that I joined at the right time because I was kind of maybe the missing puzzle to what they were trying to build. And then like every other roster change that we made, like after bringing Olaf and Guardian, was just like an upgrade to the what they were trying to build. So for me, it was just a dream coming true back then, because in Mouse I've been there for 2 years, but the results were not there, and I really wanted to prove myself to the world. And obviously FaZe back then, they were the biggest organization in the world, maybe even today still. So playing with Karrigan and Hovey back then as well was for me a dream. I still look up to these guys. So yeah, it was an easy decision for me.
I think we can take a look now. You know, your first tournament really with NiKo in Katowice, actually. Yeah, and went pretty well for a first showing. Made it all the way to the grand final. Faced off against Astralis, who were just off the back of a major win in Atlanta. So I don't think you even had much time to practice or anything. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think we had 2 weeks. It was literally jumping into the ship, and it almost went bad in group stage.
Sure, we had 2 weeks? I don't think we had any time.
Maybe 1 week. I don't know about the roster logs back then, but we had not much time. I think you joined, and then we only had like 7 practice days in February before we had to travel to Katowice or something. It was very little. Okay. Might even be less.
Because I don't even remember any practice that we had.
There might not have been.
Because I think we came almost straight from Vegas to Katowice, if I'm not mistaken.
No, okay, yeah, but you signed with us, but you had to finish the tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because we played you guys in Vegas, Mouse versus FaZe, so you already joined us in February.
Yes. I think I destroyed you.
Yeah, you did. I was like, guys, good pick. But I think we almost lost in the group stage. We had to play these very strange rule, MR3 tiebreaker.
Yeah, it was
MR3
round robin
overtime on train and weapon rounds. It was so strange, but we qualified. But then it was too big of a deal for us to play Astralis, who was playing so good at that moment. But I think we had opportunities. We've won one map, I think, and then we had like close rounds on Nuke and Overpass. I remember
we should have won Overpass.
Dupree making ace with Eagle on short at like 12-12 or 13-13. So yeah, that was a good start to.
I think we have the video lined up for it, so we can take a look. The after movie of the time, you know how different.
It was 8 years ago, yeah.
Yes. Now it's damn, man.
Well, it was with Kio and Alu, no?
Yeah.
There he is.
I don't know why, but Spodek looks bigger back then than now.
Yeah.
I swear to God. Fuck, look at Hovey, man.
Yeah. I was a different Hovey back then.
I was already stealing the op. No, but this map we threw away, I remember.
Yeah.
We lost some super important antique on CT.
Yeah, you're gonna see it soon. Dupree ace.
that as well.
And then Dupree on Nuke on the silo downstairs. Yeah. One tap, you know? This one.
Fucking hell. He destroyed me. I guess so sad watching CSGO, man, how crisp it was.
Yeah.
Man, if he won like all these finals that we have lost together,
we would still play together, huh?
Would have been a different story. Maybe we'll be wearing same jersey at this podcast now.
Actually, I mean, this year for you guys is very similar to last year, first half of the year for you as well. Like, you guys lost this final. You made the finals of pretty much every single event that you played at up until Cologne. From here, you went to Star Ladder. You already won that.
Yeah.
You forgot the PGL major there.
Well, it was after Cologne.
It was way after.
It was after Cologne, yeah.
No, it was before Cologne.
Which one?
No, it was Cologne then Krakow, I think.
No.
Astralis missed. Astralis skipped
No,
Cologne.
PGL Krakow was before the summer. Like it was the end of the first season. And then Cologne was the next season.
No,
I think
Cologne was earlier.
Huh?
Cologne was earlier, and Astralis
Really?
skipped it so they could focus on the
Yeah, because
maybe.
Krakow,
Cologne
and then
is
they
now-
moved to
I'm
Gambit.
crazy.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Cologne is now after player break. But it also used to be before
no, we
player
had a
break.
boot camp after Cologne.
Yeah,
for the
that's
cra-
where the team died actually. Then it changed.
But I was going to ask you, because a lot of those finals that you made and lost, that's where your rivalry with the Brazilians, with SK
Yes,
Gaming,
yes.
really flamed up. So tell me a little bit what you remember about some of those battles.
I mean, it was so strange, honestly. I think we were playing really good. We started beating Astralis, and then SK came fired up with a lineup. And somehow it was completely clash on the style. I think I understood Astralis' style a lot, how we should approach some of the rounds and the game and what maps. But I always had an issue for... Even in Astralis had issues with the way SK was approaching the game. Like back then it was Luminosity. And then they refined some energy SK. And I think the problem I had was one of the first time we played them. We played them on overpass. I don't know, it was 3 maps, and we had win streak on all 3 maps, like 8-0, 7-0, 9-0, and they started picking our best map against us. So me and Robin comes back from the Veto, and I'm like, what are they doing, Finn? Like, we have
IEM
all
Sydney.
3 best maps.
IEM
and we,
Sydney.
and we just get wrecked. And it's like, at that moment, I realized, like, their style and the way we approach the game, the way we want to play on this scenario was completely... in their beneficial in the way that they played, and I think they really had a good take on us, and our best maps were their best maps. So I think it's kind of like the same scenario we had with Vitality for the past 2 years. Our best maps, their best maps, and they just have that extra peak on some of those maps. So it just was really awkward sometimes in map Vetos against someone like SK back in days for us. It's like we had no chance basically.
It was what they revolutionized was they played more patient than anyone really, especially in clutches. They were the first ones to sort of start playing that. You know, was that really frustrating to play against at the time?
I cannot remember exactly like what was our main issue, but they definitely had something over us, I would say, and we just could not. I remember, even myself, I always played bad in video versus them, for example. I think it was like only Hovey who was stepping up versus them, for example.
Yeah, Hovey versus Fur. That was a lot of dudes in our pass.
Yeah. So I don't know what was the issue. It's just, I mean, obviously they were like, you know, it's not like they were only winning against us. They were like still the best team in the world together with us at that point. So maybe they were just slightly better as a team. Maybe they had a better team play because we have always maybe kind of relied on more like individuals popping off. But it's unfortunate that I think we had the chance, as you said, that first event that we had played, I think we had a chance to win them there, because I remember one round I messed up on overpass, for example. The clutch was closer. That was super important, where I peaked before, like I should have. I think he had no time to defuse, and I just peaked. I wanted to kill him before he touched the fuse. So I messed up, and then there was the clutch as well, 1v3 that we lost to Colzera from the B bomb site.
Oh, yeah.
That he did a spray down. So, I mean, yeah, who knows if he would have won that match, maybe it would have been played out differently for the other matches.
I think one of the stranger ones for me for that FaZe lineup has to be Cologne. Like semi-final against Big, you're the massive...
We had Croman.
That was the next year.
No, that was...
Oh, the next year?
That was the next year.
Yeah, we had Big with Croman because...
okay.
So that one doesn't count.
we don't count those. Then tell me, you mentioned the boot camp before Krakow, because Krakow is where you are out in last place. You're a 0-3 team, right? So what happened? What was the cause of that?
I think it ended up having... what's it called? The English word is like groups within the team. We had a lot of issues with dealing with each other. So in the end, it was kind of like personal clashes. You could feel that kind of the team lost the trajectory of what we're trying to do, how we want to do things, and just personal wise, we had issues. Different players had issues with different players. I think the only one, Hovey, had no problems with anyone. And when I saw Hovey never tilts, right? In practice, he said a bad word, and then he just rushed 3 rounds in a row with P90 and said, and he left the practice room. And at that moment, like, okay, we have to change. There's nothing we can do now. Like where we are as a team right now, mentally, personal-wise, it didn't work out. And I don't think it had much to do with the results, because we were still going semi-finals, finals. It looked very strange from outside why we would change. And then the opportunity of Guardian and Olof came on the same time, and I think we all agreed, Miho and NiKo, that we'd been changing 2 players. Let's start from kind of a scratch on how we want to approach, and they were both at that point an upgrade in the players we needed for the team.
Yeah, NiKo mentioned, I mean, FaZe being the biggest org, I mean, the national teams, it feels like that change really made it that way, because all of the, best player in the world in 2015, Guardian, one of the best toppers, in that time in the game, combined with all of you guys, it really felt like the first proper super team in that sense. And you guys hit the ground running, winning a couple of tournaments. Like, how was it at the start of that team? Even for you, Finn, having so many different pieces.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this was the moment where I realized now you can make international teams, because normally we would choose a player that was not good enough for Envy. Kiyoshima, Alo got benched in NP, he has no Finnish team, we take him. And NiKo didn't have a domestic team he could be part of, so we took him. And now we got players from Fnatic and from Na'Vi who were competing against some top teams. At that moment, when we got those players, like, now you're actually making international team works, because now you can choose players from that big org. So I think playing with these players, I knew if this doesn't work, my head is getting hunted for down from everyone, from the community, from everyone within the team as well, right? Because when you are playing with these players, I wouldn't say there was egos per se, but it was hard to deal with in certain areas, especially after losing, because everyone expects to win or used to winning, and for the first time, dealing with cultural differences. We as Scandinavians are very different to how Balkans are, how Ladi is, like Guardian. So it's just like, that's the first time where, like, okay, there's different ways you talk with people, there's different ways you interrupt what a player says to you during a game, what he says after a game. And that was a very cool experience, and also made me a better leader today to understand where people are coming from. So yeah, I think playing that team was a dream come true. I also knew the pressure was there, but I think we as a team handled it all right, but we could have handled it better today with a mental coach, because we were the first team to actually have that much pressure from day one you created a team. Every other team had no pressure like we had. The second we got Olof Guardian, not winning every single tournament was not even good enough. We had to win 16-5, else we were like playing bad. That's basically how the pressure felt the day we started lineup.
And you hit the ground running. I mean, you set the record in New York when it comes to individual performance, and one of the most dominant runs for a team even. So how was it for you once Olof and Guardian joined the team, and now you have all these guys who are capable of making plays, and they're really good individual players?
I mean, I wouldn't say that we hit the ground from the start, because we had the Malmo before that, where we bombed out in groups.
Had to change some positions.
So I think that event was like super important for us to see where we are, kind of, and how everyone is on the team. And I think we lost the same day, and I think we went maybe even to practice in the same day or the day after. So we really needed the practice. But yeah, then we went to New York, and I don't know, it was just a different team. Like, everything just clicked, and no one won more than 6 rounds against us. So it was just, I think that was like the real, like, when we hit the peak at that time, that was us in New York. I felt like just no one could come close of beating us. So but also, as Finn said, like, the pressure was there from the very beginning, but we also set, I think, the standards very high by winning New York that way as well. Then everything else was like you always think about, but maybe we should have won this round as well, and like, maybe we should have won this game, and so on. So but when you bring those players, when you have a team like that, when you invest this much money as well, obviously people have the expectations. We had the expectations, and I think mostly we dealt good with it. But as I said, I think just a lot of these finals that we have lost, those are the fees that impacted the team most, in my opinion.
Do you think it was perhaps even the expectations that were the root cause of that grand final loss? in Boston because it was an opponent that you had the upper, have an easy time against them pretty much every time you face them, and you're right there. The expectations are to win, and sort of you're thinking in your head like, we're gonna win this no matter what happens.
Yeah, I think there's two ways, right? We were overconfident. I even think Rain wrote on Twitter the day before, it's gonna be easy final tomorrow, and I'm like, he's never treating that again. I think. I think there is two ways, right? You learn over time that you can beat a team 8 times, but the 9th time you're meeting them might be the most important game, which is gonna be a final. There's always discussion about Veto. There's always discussion about what feels good doing a tournament, right? We went for a map that Cloud9 never got like 7-8 rounds against us. We go into the game, and I think a few months later I figure out that I asked Automatic why he plays double lob on overpass, because he just said we never had a chance, and we saw you guys double lob, so they started double lobbing and doing something like crazy in the map. I think in the end we had expectations, the community had expectations, but I think we might have been a little bit overconfident in ourselves, because I think once you've been there in the final, the final is never the same as a semi or quarterfinal. Everything can happen. It's about who wants it the most that day, and I think they wanted it more than us, because we probably expected it more than we wanted it. And I think when I play major finals now, like I didn't play a major final for like 4 or 5 years before 2022, and I remember the day I played the major final in Boston. When I think back, I didn't really think too much about it. It didn't have that like eager in me, as every time playing a major final or a big final, there's that eager and like to prove this is a chance for you to redeem one of those finals you didn't get. And I think that's the difference. I probably wasn't in the best mental state either, because maybe it was too easy at a certain point in that team. But that's something you have to learn. Nobody can tell you how to adjust to a final loss, or how to be before a final. That all comes with experience, and the only way is to lose a very bad games. And I think the reason why I won so much in 2022 is probably because I hated so much how 2018 turned around, to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I think for me that was one of the key things. I think overconfidence wasn't not an issue, but it also won us a lot of games. But that one might have been a little too much overconfidence.
I think unfortunately it didn't get much better right after Boston, because we had the Katowice 2018.
This is the loss that ruined the team.
Grand final. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Was that became too much after those 2 in a row?
Yeah, like there just has been way too many missed chances for our team. Like starting from like IEM Oakland, for example, losing to NIP.
Rest contract.
Yes, yeah. And then we lost the major, and then we lost Katowice. And like in 1 year, we could have won like both major and Grand Slam, for example. And then you're just out there without anything, like not even close of winning neither of them. And then all of taking a break. And that was like, how do you recover from this? Like what's the next thing? And we even somehow managed to win event with the Crowman.
Yeah.
Exist as well. So it's, but I think like if you would have won like all these events, or not even all of them, if you would have won like one, like if you would have won Katowice after the Boston major, I think would have still been fine. But like just losing all of it in like span of 3-4 months, that was just.
But it's also the fashion we lose. Like if we are playing Fnatic, we are 15-14 and we're losing and 1v2, 1v3 to go to overtime in the Cloud9 game. If we just lose the third map like we did in the major in Copenhagen, now we're 13-2. We had 0 chance. It was just like it was over when it started already. Like you just know in the game. But when you're that close constantly in every single final, in a 5th map, in a 3rd map, in overtime, it's just gonna break you way harder than just realizing, damn, we didn't have a chance in the last map. But then you just go down to micro things. Could I set up something different? Could I make it one different peak in the 14-14 round, and the whole game would not even be in overtime?
Maybe we needed Eddie. Sorry, Robert.
That's true, actually. You don't want to major with Robin, only with Eddie. Yeah.
I know in 2018, towards the very end, MIBR is going back to full Brazilian. FaZe reaches out to me to be their coach for 2019, and they tell me, we're going to remove Karrigan, right? And I said, is there any way any way that he stays on the team, you know, because
You need to make it that bad.
You have proof of that? Or is it just
I was just like my point was like I understand things were rough for you guys and obviously mistakes on both sides. I felt like maybe you didn't get enough help at times and that things could be repaired because getting an IGL on the market is like very difficult, especially someone, you know, so capable. But as you guys said, things really sort of deteriorated to that point where it was unable to continue. But looking back, do you feel like maybe some of the issues were overblown at the time?
I think like the issues were there, but I just think we had a bad approach on how to resolve them, if that makes sense. I don't think we had enough experience as a team that went already through some of these mistakes. And I also don't think that we had enough people around us to help us get back on the right track, because back then it was just 5 players and Robin, and there was no one else. So the only people that were in the team like had a tighter picture of what's happening in the team. We didn't have anyone like kind of outside that sees a bit like bigger picture of how to approach these issues. So at that moment I definitely think that with this experience that I have now, and maybe even him, that we would have like approach the issues way differently, and we would try to kind of resolve the issues before making a roster change, especially considering what a team we had back then. Even when we made this change, we still were like one of the best in the world. We still like won Epicenter or something before the making a change. So definitely lack of experience and lack of people around us, I would say, that's maybe led to all of this.
How was that time like for you, Finn?
It was a strange one. I mean, first of all, there was rumors of some of the players maybe looking into other opportunities. So in the end of the 2018, I am obviously in talk with FaZe that we are maybe rebuilding around me. We go to tournament, and after tournament, I am benched. So it was a very turmoil up and down for me, because I was maybe also not in the best mental shape, right? There was a lot of issues around the team, but also with me, right? Like NiKo said, I maybe didn't have the most help. I think Robin just had a kid doing one of the tournament, and that's kind of the closest guy I had to talk about some things as a leader of the team, because being like nobody in the team has been a leader, and I think nobody understands that the pressure that's extra on this team is also gonna fire back to how we approach the game, how we lose in some of the finals, right? Because we were not good to talk about rounds and demos and mistakes. We didn't work good as a team. Now we work really good as individually as a team. Everybody's staying sharp in game, but we were not sitting down and talking mistakes for 3 hours. It was very non-honest team. In the teams you have today, you're having team talks. We didn't really have team talks back then. Robin would facilitate some talks with us, coming clean with some stuff that you heard about people talking, but we were not being honest as a team in front of everyone, and I think that kind of like sparked a lot of control, and a lot of things happened during Olof leaving the team, trying to adjust my vision, and then, you know, as a captain, you're playing with Olof, you have a vision for the team, you play with a stand-in, I changed calling during a tournament, then we play stand-in 3 times with Exist, I changed the calling, then we get Chrome, and a completely different player who doesn't know how to play Lurk, and I didn't start changing people, and I think in the end I kind of lost track of what made me a good leader, but also what made team good. And I think the biggest mistake was when Olof came back, our expectation was to win the first tournament we play with Olof, even though he'd been out for 5 months or 4 months. We go to the tournament, we lose 4 overtimes that tournament, and at that moment it is cracking with inside the team, and we go to the major, and you know, I start not trusting myself, and teams start not maybe trusting some of the things I say, and in that moment where we don't talk with each other, everything is blown up in everybody's head, and explosions happen within the team, right? And that's what happened. I also think now I learned a lot from that experience. I learned a lot from my Astralis experience. I am way more mature in the way I see things, but I'm also a very strong believer in what I see. And I'm going to be honest, if somebody's not obeying the things I want to happen in the server, and I rather want to be where I can lead who I am and be the personality I am. And if people don't want me, I can just go to another team. That's basically how I view myself now. But when you're getting this much experience within a team, you kind of learn a lot from past mistakes, but you also learn what you can't change within yourself.
I think also, there was a lot of frustration towards the end of that year, and then coming into 2019, you take over the in-game leader duties. It's initially temporarily, but then it becomes a struggle to find someone to do it. Did you, as you spent a good amount of time in-game leading, maybe find some appreciation for the situation perhaps that Karrigan was in, and that how many things you have to think about when you're in that role?
Yeah, I mean, when we first decided to remove Finn, it was never our first plan for me to IGL. We talked to multiple people said no. Some of them were just maybe not good enough. So in the end, we just ended up with me being IGL, and I think that all led to us losing faith in him and the team before, because I took over IGL for the major and the kind of rest of the year, and we tried to switch back for the New York event. So I think if I didn't take over the IGL during this 3-4 months that was left in the season, maybe if we wouldn't have won the Epicenter, I would never even think about being an IGL. So maybe it would have been also different if we just had an open talk to what was wrong in the team back then. But I definitely appreciate what IGLs are doing for the team, and especially IGLs like Finn. I think it's not an easy work, and I think people are just lately starting to appreciate more of the IGLs, to what they're doing for the team, to how much they contribute to the team, and just how much they mean in general, of keeping the team together. You can even see from Spirit now that they're embracing Chopper, for example, right? He's kind of the main guy that's keeping them together, So these things people don't really see on the server. This is just that you see from when you're in the team, and this should be the most important thing for the IGLs. Sometimes, obviously, it's rough for IGLs that when they don't play good, they don't maybe they don't get enough appreciation from the teammates either, and that can just be even more harsh on them. So I definitely have huge respect to all IGLs that are out there, and this is the reason why I'm still not an IGL, because I'm not ready yet to commit to all of this work, to all of these discussions and all the work that you need to put. So just a lot of respect for them.
Were you guys ever close to reuniting after that?
Multiple times.
Yes. I mean, I think for sure I wanted to play with NiKo again, right? There was little a chance when I came back to FaZe, when NiKo left for D2, that FaZe tried to talk to NiKo that what if Finn comes back, but I think at that point NiKo just running out of FaZe, in that sense that the pressure mounting on what is representing FaZe, and for him he will probably just need a new place to go, right? And I think we multiple times we have had a good relationship. I think we never needed to talk about what happened, because we both know that we are part of what we did. I know I wasn't best leader back then, and in the end it's all about perspective, and some things it's not personal, some things is just because you want to win so bad. And NiKo is one of the guys I think that wanted the most I ever met in my career, and he wants to do everything to win. And I think the thing he's doing now from D2 Falcons represents that as well. It's about winning, it's nothing else but that. Where you want to be, where you want to win. The same reason I went back from Mouse to FaZe. I wanted the pressure, I wanted the best team in the world, and win everything I can, and that's what we do. When you want to win so bad, you are willing to take risk with replacing players. But like I said, I think with more open talks and more experience now, I think this will never be an issue. I think it's the issue we had was probably one of the first ones that every international team has now. It is a lot about culture, that you have to respect where people are coming from, and I think that's basically it. So multiple times we try to see with the opportunity, but it is very hard because we are both big brands, big players, and I think also big important pieces for every org. So letting anyone go anywhere would be very hard.
I was like, maybe
I agree.
Never mind, it was just all a joke.
There we go. All right, moving a little bit then in the period when you were facing against each other a lot. Luckily, you were both able to find the success, right, and find some of the big trophies. I mean, for me, 2022 probably the best year a team has had when it comes to the Counter-Strike scene, winning Katowice, Cologne, and the major. Still not enough for Robin to win Coach of the Year, of course, Rob. But how good did that feel after all the trials and tribulations and COVID and all of that stuff?
In some way, it pissed me off because, you know, like when within 6 months, I win trophies that I tried to sacrifice everything for 10 years, the majors, the Katowice, the Cologne. And within 6 months, I have to enjoy every single win, and we're just going on a tear, and it's like, it just feels like unnatural that it all happened, and the way we won as well reminds of the way I lost before, which is like the Cologne final just reminds me so much of the Katowice final. There was a moment in that final where I'm like, this is 5th map, I'm not gonna, it's 13, 14, I'm like, last time I was here, I was struggling to find the right solution, and I just go with my like stomach feeling, and just like, you know, in that moment you just realize that some of the losses I had in the big finals is the reason why we are able to stay stronger now in some of these finals, because in the end it was insane. It's like winning the 3 tournaments is like dream come true, and I think it's unbelievable that it all happened in 1 year, and I don't know, it was this amazing moment to be part of. And it's all kind of like a blur, like when you lost, because there's so many emotions. I remember I almost passed out or fell asleep after Cologne final, because that season was like Katowice with a stand-in without losing a single map in playoff. Okay, I'm like, oh, lucky tournament. Then we go PGL and we don't have a coach, so I'm like, I'm putting a lot of extra work to keep the team together to make sure, and then we go to Cologne and we win as well. It's like, whoa. Yeah, little pissed, but in the end, very happy.
Tell me a little bit about that. Sorry, NiKo, Katowice final in 2022, and also just maybe really briefly, you won so many tournaments with stand-ins, right? Like that's obviously difficult to do. You're missing whoever, you have to slot guys into different roles. Like what is it that you do so well that you're able to make the team work even with a stand-in?
I think it becomes less about defaults and becomes really about micromanaging. It's not fun for me to play with a stand-in, but it is challenging. I try to think about what the cool part about playing with a stand-in, get to know a player for every single match you play. I fast rewatch, like not in-eye, but how he moves on the map and understanding, okay, this guy cannot play this role that I want him to play in a certain scenario. Freeing up players to play a lot of more explosive style. That's what I love to do my whole career, but it's not something I can rely on in a season full of big tournaments. But within a short period of time, it comes down to a lot of like how I see the game and how I read the game. And with a stand-in, we just go all in on my gut feeling, and I'm just really trying to micro the small details. But like I said, it's very, very hard mentally for me because I am so invested in the vision of the round, looking a lot on radar to understand. And in the end, I think it's a surprising factor. But maybe the way I'm also leading the team is leading without pressure. I don't care if you're losing, if you're going to A-stack. I don't care if they're over-rotating. We just go in there, like with my feeling of what is right. Where if you're playing in a team, you are really aware of what the players like to do, what mistakes you've done in the past, how we are adapting to certain scenarios. So a lot more thought process goes into that to kind of build like basics. And with a stand-in, you don't have any basics. Everything gets thrown out.
What were your expectations going into that final in 2022? I mean, you also had a stand-in, but off the server, your Extaz was your coach at the time. He couldn't be there, so you had Amanek, the super sub, standing in. But you know, just from your perspective, going into that grand final, you decided to forget about it.
You look like
to repress this memory.
No. I mean, like, I think we barely got out of the groups as well at that event, if I remember correctly. So we were not insane, as a team at that event. We did make it to final, but it was not like that impressive. And we knew, like, even if FaZe were to play with a stand-in at that event, it was still going to be a tough matchup. It's every final game is just that game can go like either way at some point. So we knew it was going to be tough. But I think what mainly decided about this final was just the first map, Inferno, and like all of the 3 maps were so close, but this Inferno was the first map, right?
Yeah, 14-7,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, so like we were in a huge lead, and I think if we would have won this map, I think they would have started doubting themselves maybe a bit more, and then I think we would take over control throughout the final. But like they won the first map, and then they just kind of kept rolling, and
I think that's interesting what you said. You guys obviously both played a ton of finals, won some, lost some. How important, how many of them do you feel were decided like that? Like the first map potentially being like, or a really close map that went your way in a best of 5 sort of made the difference that you were playing a different team after that?
I don't always think. I think in this scenario, NiKo's right, because we are playing with a stand and right. There were the basics, and us expecting to play 5 maps in a final with a player who is replacing 2 different players during the tournament. Like, we have no expectation, but also no experience. I remember the Veto. I was looking at the Veto's like, thank God they picked Dust 2 the second map, because I think we picked first or something. I can't remember how it was.
third map, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you picked something Mirage or something, where I was like, good they didn't pick Nuke. Because Nuke with Hovey, but JKS is playing outside, because we lost Hovey in the playoff, right, to COVID. And I was like, this is the 3 maps. We have to win at least 2 of these. If we don't win, it's going to be down to like them throwing everything away. But like you said, I think the way we won the first map in the final is with a stand-in is key thing. I could keep the pressure on in the way we were playing and the way I was calling, because if we lose the first map, they are playing feeling more comfortable and we are under the pressure, right? But I think generally when we play a team like Na'Vi, Spirit, everyone else, I don't think the first map matters, because I think we often lose the first map in our team in a way where we look like we don't play with monitors, and the next map we have monitors on again. So I don't think it means that much in a larger degree, but playing with a team that has a stand-in in a final and they win first map, they believe in everything now. So that's for me. Maybe if you play a huge underdog in a final, they win first map.
I think that was with us when we played the Vitality in Dallas with the stand-in as well. When we won the first map, I knew we were going to win the final. There was just no way we are losing. That's how the team felt, in a way. Maybe I picked up a thing or 2 on how to win with the stand-in.
Don't do it too often, please. Still have that on my side of the story.
I was also going to ask, we could see from both you guys when you finally managed to win Katowice, right, how much it actually meant. And also in 23, when you were able to lift the trophy, you guys did meet, but in the group stages. But when it came to the grand final, even in the loss against them, you didn't play at your best. Was it the reason for that just sort of you're chasing this trophy for so long that it's a little bit too much pressure to be able to just focus on playing?
Yeah, I'm not really sure like what are the reasons, but obviously like when you go into a final of the same event over and over again, it just becomes harder and harder, if that makes sense. So it just becomes more difficult to play. You just think more about the winning. You're just playing more maybe safe in a way. Like you just don't want to lose in a way. So I cannot tell you right now how I felt at that moment, but I definitely know that I always think about like what would happen if I would have won this event like a year ago or something like that. So these things definitely impact me, and this is the things that I try to work on always with performance coaches, how to not avoid it but minimize it at least, and how to just accept it and deal with it. But it is tough, but I have seen moments where I kind of get over it, but then again, like one bad final like can also bring you back to the same memories that you had. So it's a very difficult mental issue that I'm constantly working on, and I believe it's gonna get better.
All right, I wanna sort of close out with the most recent time you guys faced off against each other at the Shanghai Major. G2 being a big favorite in that one, considering the track record that you had against FaZe, but FaZe Clan in the major playoffs, finding that extra gear. How did you see that matchup going into it? How are you feeling?
I felt super confident actually going into that playoff. Maybe even similar to how I felt like during Boston as well. And I think that FaZe at that event, maybe like considering how they played prior to this season, I think they overpeaked a bit, if that makes sense, especially ropz in playoffs. But I never expected it to be an easy game, but I did have confidence we're gonna win. And again, like starting the Ancient, like we could just see from the start that we started doubting ourselves for some reason, and I don't really know why these things really show up in like those important moments where like you lose a round and you just don't let go like immediately and you focus on the next one, right? And I think they started by winning the pistol, and then the first gun round they entered empty the side, for example. I think you rushed there or something like that on Nation, and then we are down 0-5, and then we're like, fuck, like it's gonna be tough, right? So but yeah, for myself, I felt very confident. I think what put me off the pace at that match is probably that they kept hitting A all the time on Nation, for example, and I could never really get in the match because they were just like always going on A in gun rounds. And then I started forcing things. I was like, fuck, I want to take over control and like want to try to be more aggressive. But then it's just like you do a force thing and then like it's just straight up mistake because you do it. So
Karrigan with that almost a smile of a villainous laugh, was that intentional? What NiKo was mentioning?
I mean, there's always idea what I want to do in game plan, right? I have a certain idea how I think we'll play, what I think D2's strong suit is, and I also think you always know what kind of could be weak, but you never know how players adapt, right? I think if you keep hitting A, there might also be a chance Magisk goes full ham on A side, right? But that's a risk you kind of take. But I knew the game plan on T side was to force them to kind of like especially adapt themselves in the middle, and then I think I hit them with a late double fake to finish out the round. At that moment, I knew that I had them where I wanted them on the T side, but that's why I miss MF15 sometimes. You can build up a fun ending of halves, right? But I think you never know if we called A-Ross first rip round, they're doing double A. We just lose round straight up there, the game goes different, but that's the risk you take as an IGL. That's the risk I started taking in the playoff. I knew that with ropz playing the way he was, that opens up a big avenue in how I want to approach the game when he's firing all cylinders like that. Our team becomes immortal in many certain stuff to the game. Especially we can play the late round, we can play the fast rounds, and he's taking a lot of gaps and risk when he plays like that with confidence. And I wanted to abuse that a lot on Ancient to start the game, to force him into late rounds where he had time to win them. And in the end, we just made the right calls at the right moment. And like NiKo says, I think as a player of NiKo's caliber, when you're avoiding his area where he can play some mid rounds and you kind of force him to do a decision that's maybe unnatural, that's where it becomes really a mental game where what do I call next time? Because if NiKo starts thinking what we're going to do, instead of just doing what he wants to do, that means he's thinking about the game. And at that moment as an IGL, that's where I hate it the most, when I'm thinking what the IGL is going to think I'm going to do now. Then you're already out of your headspace, so I just call what I think is the right thing that I've learned in my career, and I think T-side Ancient was a perfect calling from start to end. But sometimes I call perfect, and we only get 4 rounds. So in the end, we have to win by winning clutches as well.
You've had such a storied career already. 2024 was tough. Some tough losses there in both of the majors. What keeps you hungry? What keeps you motivated to, bounce back and go for it again?
I think it's a good question, right? I think having that, I think a lot of my career was that I'm probably happy I didn't win Boston when I look back now, because I think maybe it couldn't have made me so hungry for 4 or 5 years in Mouse and FaZe to perfect the leadership I want to show, perfect the game, sitting down and working my ass off to constantly prove myself. In the end, I think the last 7 years, people told me to retire, and I'm just here every year trying to prove themselves that I decide when I want to retire. I want to have players around me who believes in my vision, believes in my system, because if they do, I believe I can make them better player. Maybe not today, but in a year, maybe they learn something from me. And I think the motivation is simple. I want to be one of the greatest IGL to ever touch the game. Maybe even want to have played with the most players to lift trophies. And I'm just happy where I am right now with the trust I have from org and players. And I think backing down is not an option for me anymore. I think losing a final, I get so upset, I get so emotional. But next morning I'm rewatching the game and I'm already making a plan for next week how to adjust for that mistake. And next time there comes a new mistake again. And sometimes you just lose, like we did in Katowice final against Dunk in Spirit 3-0. We had no chance. And that was kind of upsetting that, you know, you only learn from that, but some games you just had no chance. It's as simple as that. It's sports, it's Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is not different from sports when it comes to that.
And NiKo, you know, you're playing until you win the major, or is that not going to stop? You're going to keep playing even if you get one?
Then you have to lose one more major final. You have to play a little bit longer.
No, I'll definitely keep playing longer. Like there's no reason for me to stop playing after winning a major. And I obviously think about winning the major, but that's not really the only thing that I want to achieve. But if I want to achieve those things that I want, I need to win a major. So major connects to everything in the career, but I just I love competing, I love working, I love playing, I love traveling. So everything around like the job that I'm doing, I just love it. So this is for me what keeps me going, and I want to build some good legacy, I would say. So, but in order to do that, I need to win a major. But one major is not gonna settle me, if that makes sense. All right. Let's win the first one.
You have a legacy, even though. I think one of the things I learned fast was basically in 2021, I was like, okay, if I don't win a major, Katowice or Cologne, let me just win everything else there is. So when you actually play, you start thinking about, it's not going to define who you are, but if you're winning everything else, you were great. Because you might not be the greatest, but you were great. And in some sense, you can't decide, since it's a team game, you're not playing a 1v1 tennis. You're not in control of everything. And I think that was the kind of like relax my mind. So
yeah,
take that advice.
Hey, I saw when you won a major, so I have time.
Yeah, still time.
Well,
don't be my record.
I think it's safe to say I'm sitting in between two greats, and who knows, time will tell, maybe even two of the greatest. Thank you guys so much. It was a lot of fun. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This was Roundtable with NiKo and Karrigan. Make sure to like, subscribe, tune in for a lot more of cool content. See you at the next one.
Face up.
Peace.